Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to make beef bourguignon. You might also know it as beef burgundy. Basically, it is tender beef that has been stewed in red wine and beef stock. And here's how I do it. I'm going to start by using 3 pounds of beef chuck roast. I've cut it into large chunks, maybe 2 to 3 inch chunks. I'm going to pat it dry, and I'm going to salt each side, making sure that your meat is dry. And also, I let this set on the counter for about 20 minutes. This will help you get a better sear and browning on the exterior of your meat. So now here I have a pot, a very heavy bottom pot that I've been preheating. I'm going to add some grapeseed oil to that, and I'm going to brown each side of the meat, and I'm going to do this in batches. It took me 3 batches while using my Dutch oven pot here. You don't want to crowd the meat because it won't brown well. And I do want to show you, when your meat is ready to be flipped, it should release easily like that, but some of these pieces I sort of had to peel off the bottom of the pan. They probably could have gone longer. And I do want to mention that I am working with a medium-high to high heat because you really want to get a good browning sear. So after searing and browning all of my meat, I am definitely left with some fond at the bottom. And it's not burnt. Don't be afraid that it's burnt. It's just flavor. So now I'm going to add 1 large carrot that I've cut into chunks and 1 small onion that I left in large chunks. If you want to dice it in a small dice and saute it, you could do that also. I just leave things chunky. So I'm going to saute this with a pinch of salt for about a minute or so. Now I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, and I'm just going to continue sauteing my vegetables. And basically what I'm trying to do is build a crust on the bottom of the pot, because ultimately when I add liquid, it's going to be flavor. So now I'm going to add 3 heaping tablespoons of all-purpose flour right on top of my sauteed vegetables and tomato paste. And this is going to help thicken the sauce as it cooks later. So I'm going to cook the flour for about a minute again, creating a crust at the bottom of my pot. And now I'm going to add all of my seared meat back into the pot. I'm going to give that a mix. At this point, you'll want to start scraping up that fond, but now I'm going to use an entire bottle of red wine. I am using a Pinot Noir. This is around 3 cups of red wine that I'm using. It's a 750 milliliter bottle. I'm going to give that a mix and just keep picking up that flavor at the bottom of the pot, all of that fond. You want to scrape it up. And I'm also going to be adding 16 ounces or 2 cups of store-bought beef stock. It is a low sodium beef stock, and you'll want to cover the meat, not completely, but I think 16 ounces with the full bottle of red wine is enough liquid in my pot. So now I'm going to add some salt to taste, around 1.5 teaspoons to 2 teaspoons, it's up to you, and some freshly cracked black pepper, around 1/2 teaspoon of that. I'm also going to be adding 1 bouquet garni, which consists of 5 sprigs of fresh thyme, a bunch of parsley, and 2 fresh bay leaves. I'm actually going to sort of bend and pinch the bay leaves to get that started. It's very aromatic and lends great flavor to this. And all I'm going to do is take some kitchen cooking twine and wrap it together, tie it together, and add it right into my pot. Okay, so once everything comes up to a boiling or rolling simmer, I'm going to cover it with a lid, and I'm going to lower the heat because you don't want this to cook at a raging boil. So I'm going to put it on a medium low to low heat, and I'm going to let it cook for 1 hour covered. Then after the first hour, I'm going to offset the lid, and if you need to lower the heat, that's fine, but I'm going to continue cooking it for about another 1.5 hours to 2 hours, and offsetting the lid will help reduce and thicken the liquid in the pot. But I'm also going to parboil some white potatoes. I'm going to serve this with potatoes today. So I'm going to parboil them for 10 minutes, drain them. Now I'm going to add them to a bowl and add a couple tablespoons of grapeseed oil, salt and pepper to taste. I'm going to give it a good mix and combine well. And then I'm going to lay it out on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. and I'm going to roast these in a preheated oven at 400 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes or until they are tender, cooked, and golden brown. And this is perfect with my beef bourguignon. This is what I like to do. Mashed potatoes is something else you can make with this. Maybe some crusty garlic bread or pasta. But today this is what I'm serving it with. And I'm also going to garnish my beef bourguignon with some bacon, onions, and mushrooms. So to start, here I have diced 12 ounces of bacon, and I added it to a cold pan, and I'm going to cook it and render as much grease as I can. Starting with a cold pan definitely helps render out most of the grease. So here I have cooked it until it is nice and crispy. I'm going to remove my bacon and the oil. I left 2 tablespoons of that bacon grease in my pan. Now I'm going to start sauteing mushrooms. Here I have a pound of white mushrooms that I've cleaned with a damp cloth and removed the stems. And I'm just going to saute these until cooked and golden brown. First, I'm going to get some color on them. Then I'm going to add a pinch of salt and just continue sauteing until done. And I want to mention, this beef bourguignon recipe is inspired by Julia Child's beef bourguignon recipe. So it does differ from her style, but it's very close. Okay, so for my onions, I'm using a half a pound of white boiling onions that I peeled and cleaned. I've added it to a pot with about a cup and a half of beef broth, and I just basically let it boil and cook down until the beef broth reduced and the onions are cooked and sauteed. And this is what I'm using for my onions. So my onions, bacon, and mushrooms are done. My potatoes are done, and so is my beef bourguignon. Well, almost. So here my beef is tender, so I'm going to remove the bouquet garni. And then I'm going to remove the meat from the pot along with the carrots and the onion, and I'm going to reduce the liquid. So now that everything is removed from the pot, with the exception of the sauce, I'm going to let that reduce for about 15 minutes or so, or until it reaches the desired consistency I'm looking for. Now that my sauce is reduced, I'm going to add all of my meat and vegetables back into the pot, along with the sauteed mushrooms, onions, and crispy bacon. Once everything is added to the pot, I'm going to combine well and just let it simmer without the lid on a low heat for another 15 to 20 minutes. Then I'm ready to serve. So in all, I would say this took a little over 3 hours to make, including the cook time for the beef, the reduction of the sauce, and just letting it simmer with the onions, mushrooms, and bacon. And the cook time will vary depending on how chunky you have the beef and how high you boil it. So now I'm ready to serve, and this sauce is amazing. It's so good. And again, you can serve it with mashed potatoes or pasta, rice, maybe on some crusty garlic bread. It's definitely up to you. But I definitely hope you guys give this recipe a try. I hope you like it. And thanks for watching.